cards. If you wish to speak, please fill out a card and turn it in so that we have record. And if there's a need to get in touch with you, we can get in touch with you. Public speaking, 10 minutes on each side, 5 minutes on rebuttal. And after the case, please exit the building, not just go out in the lobby, but please exit the building so if there's any noise, it does not interfere with the meeting. Ms. Casbon, will you lead us in prayer?
Father, thank you for allowing us to come out, that we live in a country in which we can decide how we live and how our parish will grow. Lead and guide us in our decisions that we make and take us safely home. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Davis? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item on our agenda is approval of February.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, roll.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we need to do that. Roll call, please.
Ms. Casbon. Here. Mr. Richard. Here. Mr. Delahousse. Mr. Hines. Mr. Manella. Ms. Qureshi. Here. Mr. Willie. Here. Mr. Matthews.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Doherty.
Here.
Mr. Mackey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, approval of the February 14th minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Is there any corrections or anything?
I didn't see any. I make a motion to approve. I went through them.
We have a motion to approve. Mr. Davis, second. All those in favor, please vote. I don't need to vote. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, we have a new commissioner. Are you listed?
No, no.
He's not listed, so please note.
Okay.
You got it down? Okay.
Where will this vote show up?
Do we need to formally,
He's gonna show it on our. Really gonna show it on our J's vote.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, do we need to formally swear him in, or has that been done?
It's already been done.
Okay.
Already been done.
Mr. Chair, one other, just housekeeping item. At the last meeting, we talked about having a moment of silence for Mr. Goff.
Okay. We'd like to have a moment of silence for one of our former members, Mr. Anthony Goff, passed away several weeks ago, and I know that I didn't see it in the paper, but it was brought to my attention, and we'd like to have a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. All right, consent calendar, just public hearings, consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically dispensed by vote as approved and/or as per staff comments. Items pulled from the consent calendar shall be discussed and voted upon individually. Staff, is there any items that need to be pulled? No, sir. Okay, commissioners? Bill?
The Audrey Heights and the Terabella, I'd like to pull items to discuss on those.
Audrey Heights was the first one, and Terabella is the second one, okay? Any other items that need to be pulled? Does the public have any that they'd like to have us discuss individually? All right, I'll entertain a motion for all the rest of the items on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mackey, Mr. Matthews, rather, and second by
Mr. Willie.
Mr. Willie. All those in favor, please vote.
Okay.
Motion carries. Okay, entering parish rights of ways, servitude and easements, we didn't have any, I don't believe, did we? Minor subdivisions. Next item should be revocations and closings. Revocation 12-04003.
We got to address
Oh,
them.
yes. Excuse me, I need to back up and cover the ones that were
The
pulled.
pulled items, yes.
Okay, all right, the first one here is Audrey Heights. Ms. Matthews,
Are we ready to discuss it?
pardon?
Are we ready to discuss?
Yes,
it?
sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. Staff, I got a couple of questions maybe you can help me with. On the, well, first of all, the uncompleted items, it has water system twice. Is there a reason for that, or is that a typo?
That's just typographical
Okay,
error.
all right, happens to everybody. The other thing is, it appears that there's a letter from the architect that says everything has been completed. Do you all agree with that?
It's my understanding that the list we gave is still uncompleted.
Okay, so the March 29th letter from the architect must
Yeah.
be in error. He refers to an ALTA/ACSM survey. I have no idea what that is. Can you help me?
Okay, ALTA stands for American Land Title Association, ACSM stands for American Congress of Surveying and Mapping. And ALTA survey is basically a survey where you get boundaries, title work, everything basically rolled into the survey.
Okay, and that still needs to be done, is that correct? Is that also that needs to be done? Or is that been done?
That's,
Or it
I
says
think it's just an as-built now.
Okay,
See, the plan you see one page farther back was stamped by a land surveyor, and we need it to be stamped by a civil engineer, so that may be leading some confusion from the architect thinking more is done than it's been done.
okay. Have we asked them to come talk to us on why this has not been done?
If you look at one page in front of the page talking about the ALTA survey, you'll see a letter asking them to attend the meeting and explain.
Okay, and we, at this point, we're obligated to extend it because of the time limit, is that correct?
Bill, I don't believe we have a choice on it, but we'll see what Paul says on it.
That's what it looks like to me. Yeah, therefore, it's recommended we extend it for a period of 6 months.
Can we, again, ask them to come explain to, even though we've extended it for 6 months, to explain what the heck's going on?
There's that.
I'm sure we can ask.
Well,
Seems kind of vain, but, you know, if they've ignored us once, I guess they'll ignore us twice.
there's, on the
Ms.
letter
Caslow?
that you're getting the acronyms from, it says a resolution hasn't been reached. It seems like there's an issue over encroachment or if it's erosion. So that's something that we don't, and we wouldn't have to deal with it. We just automatically extend it till they can get that.
Well, there's
We've got
lift
a
station,
gentleman,
Is
water
there a
system, alternate water main.
Bill, we've got a gentleman that stood up. Do you represent Audrey Heights?
Oh, well, good.
Okay.
I haven't filled out a card, but I'll turn the card in just a few minutes. My name is Micah Strange with the developer consultant to the nonprofit that built Audrey Heights, and have a representative for the architect who can explain better.
Thank you all
I don't
for
really
coming.
understand that, all the details. My understanding is that all of the systems in the property have been built. They may not yet have been accepted by the city. They're in operation. The property's been in operation since, I believe, July of 2010. And the issue is an issue of what we think is erosion, and I'm not a surveyor. The engineer considers it an encroachment, and there's some discussion on whether it's an encroachment or erosion. But my understanding is that because of this, what's labeled as an encroachment, the engineer won't take that off the survey until it's resolved. And the city isn't interested in accepting the survey until the encroachment is removed, or unless there's some other decision. And that's really my understanding of the issue, that the property does exist and is operating. Now, if there are other issues that are unresolved, whether they're water, then I think we should address those. But I'm not aware of any other issues.
the particular area that you're looking at, is this where the lift stations and the water, would that particular area, it's not going to affect it? Okay.
I
But
can
that
ask him
would
to explain this. I
Okay.
really am not gonna be able to give you a good answer, but my understanding from what I know is that it was built, it eroded away, and,
Right.
and it actually, I think it was fixed once by the contractor, and the surveyor either it wasn't fixed appropriately, or the surveyor didn't get back in time before it eroded away again.
Can the engineer comment on the lift stations and what status are we at that?
I'm John Crystal, representing SGB Architects, and the lift station is operational and functioning, and the water systems are functioning also. There are no problems from our standpoint.
So basically, the plat has not been signed because we're trying to figure out this particular issue.
Yes, ma'am, the encroachment issue is kind of a gray area. It's not truly an encroachment, it's just that one of the banks of the ditches has eroded away about 2.5 feet. And so they're calling that encroachment, and the surveyor may just be putting it on there for a liability reason. And he's not gonna remove it.
Do we look at 6 months, in 6 months when this comes back up, that it can be resolved?
I think so.
Paul, the engineer's indicating that the lift station, water system, and all that stuff is there. Is there a reason we just have not accepted it, or,
Have you
because that's not a problem with the erosion?
Yeah, I mean, is there a paperwork issue maybe with environmental services, do you know?
There may be, at the end of our project, the water system was bought out by a private company. We went through their hoops in getting it approved, and they accepted it. So I don't know, I didn't realize that the water system hasn't been accepted, according
Sure.
to you guys. But as far as all paperwork and Department of Health and Hospitals has signed off on it, yes, I have all that paperwork.
Okay, and we can straighten that out in the
Okay.
office later.
Well, when this comes back to us in 6 months,
It should be
that
resolved.
all should be resolved, okay?
And Mr. Crystal, is it?
Chrysler, yes, sir.
Chrysler? So this alternate water main has been fixed, or whatever it was? There is
yes.
an alternate water main. That's one of the uncompleted items.
I guess, the water system is installed and operating. Not-
So
When
what do
you're-
we
when
what do
you're
we mean
calling
by
an
alternate
alternate-
water system?
I don't have that information with me, I'd have to pull the file.
At the original, at the beginning of the project, we were gonna connect the water through the wetlands over to that road, is it 36? That was abandoned, and we connected it through the Robindale subdivision, which is right next door. And so that's where we made our main tap.
Okay, so engineer will just update this information for us in 6 months, and
Yeah.
we'll know exactly what's happening.
It's probably
what you're
largely paperwork and as-built.
It's a good thing that
Some
has been brought up.
test
Now you
results
guys
for
can get
roadway.
together.
Yeah, now you
Okay.
can figure out what's, okay.
Is that it?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Matthews, second by Mr. Davis. Ms. Casbon, did you have any other comments that you need to make? Please vote.
Carrie.
Motion carries. All right, the second item is Terabella subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty, members of the commission. Paul Marone on behalf of the Terabella Group LLC. In your packet, I think you'll have a letter from Mr. Pagoda with Resilier Engineering explaining why the performance obligation is still there and nothing's been done. But to kind of recap that, as part of the approval for the development back in, I believe it was 2005, the traffic study at the time indicated that there needed to be turning lanes off of Highway 1085 going into the development. During the construction of the first few phases and additional approvals through preliminary and so forth, it came to our attention that the parish intended to construct a roundabout There were going to be several roundabouts, as you may recall, along 1085. One of those roundabouts is going to be directly in front of the Tarabella entrance. Once we determined that, we approached the administration, Mr. Euler and the engineering staff at that time, because it didn't make sense in our mind to construct these turning lanes that would ultimately be in the way and would have to be deconstructed and torn out to put in the roundabout. So as a result of that, an agreement was put in place whereby we would post this performance obligation, and it would ensure our obligation to build these turning lanes if, in fact, the roundabout wasn't constructed. If the roundabout is constructed, then the cost that we would have spent on those turning lanes will be used toward the roundabout. So that's where we are today, and there are only about 20 to 25 houses there, so there's not a need for the turning lane yet. We know that the parish has been delayed with regards to constructing those turning lanes, or excuse me, roundabouts. So at this point, we're in a holding pattern waiting for the parish to make that determination. If it's determined down the road that they will not construct the roundabout, then we're prepared to do the turning lane.
Do we know where the parish is on those, Paul, or Ron, or anybody?
I know that got put on hold. I don't know that it was ever started back up, but I agree with Paul that the.
Well, if we're going to build
Yeah,
roundabouts, it's
right
still,
now, there's
yeah,
no
yeah.
need, so there's no
Okay.
push to go ahead and build it, so
Okay.
we may as well wait.
Then, if there are no further questions, I would move to extend it 6 months.
I have one question.
Yes,
On this, you said there's 20 to 25 homes out there.
correct.
What does engineering believe is the need, how many homes do they need to have out there that they absolutely have to have this turning lane?
I'd have to pull the TIA to see, but it's not close to coming to a need. I've never had any trouble
Okay.
getting in and
All
out.
right, but I'm just saying you should research
Yeah.
that, find out exactly what the need is, and once you reach that point of completion out there, if we're not done in time, you may have to build that.
Sure, and we're prepared to do it.
All right, I'll second the motion.
Okay,
Thank
we have a motion by Mr. Matthews, a second by Mr. Davis. Any other discussion? Please vote on the motion.
Carries. Carried.
Motion carries. All right, next item is revocation and closings. Revocation of a portion of Ada Street located in Barbara Place subdivision, Ward 1, District 3. Applicant is Matt Cole, surveyor is Kelly McHugh, Parish Council District Number 3, Honorable James Red Thompson.
Good evening, Richard Muller, appearing for Mr. Cole and his wife, Kimberly.
Excuse me, let the
Excuse me,
staff
read staff
the report
comments first.
Okay,
Okay.
excuse me.
The petitioner is requesting the revocation of a portion of Ada Street in order to gain more rear yard to his lot. The staff has reviewed the applicant's request and believes the proposal is consistent relative to Louisiana revised statutes governing the revocation of a movable property, since the right-of-way does not appear to serve any public use or benefit other than to the applicant. Therefore, the staff has no objections to the proposed revocation request, subject to the petitioner assimilating the right-of-way into his property through the parish's administrative re-subdivision process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Muller?
Well, thank you. Let me just say that I have a couple of aerials that I'm not sure if your package contains them or not, but if you do, that might help to explain on a larger scale precisely where the road is situated. It is between two lots in a 1978 subdivision that was laid out one main street going through it. When you look at the photos, you'll see that the road was never opened. It's just a paper right-of-way, and it leads to nothing. So in terms of future use or public purpose, it would not appear that would be needed. My client is interested in acquiring the right-of-way to expand his property. Corporal Cole is a disabled veteran who has been relocated to this particular area. His house has been renovated. He at the help of the St. Tammany Home Builders Association, I might mention, and support our war heroes, both organizations of whom have been very supportive of Mr. Cole's endeavors. And we're here tonight to support his request and would hope that you would consider, given the circumstance, that you would permit the revocation of this roadway. If there are any questions about it, I'd be glad to respond to it, but as it looks on paper, and if you look at it out in the field, there is no need for this roadway. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Is there anyone
I have some questions.
against this? Okay, Ms. Casabon had her light on first.
Yes, this is, I'm familiar with the area, and I concur with staff. As long as the property is assimilated into his property, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second, I have a question of staff also.
Mr. Willie?
When it's revocated back, it goes equally to Lot 9 and Lot 8?
Well, the adjacent property owner who owns the other lot has
He owns
the
both
option.
lots, right? Or no?
No, there's
Oh,
there's
okay.
another property owner. He has the option to purchase half of the right-of-way. If he declines, then the gentleman, the applicant can acquire the
And
total
that becomes
piece.
part of that lot?
becomes
That
part
lot
of that lot.
becomes bigger in size? It's not a separate entity by itself?
That's
is it?
correct.
Okay.
That's why we requested it to be assimilated through the resub process, so it becomes actually part of his property.
And that other lot owner has been notified of this?
He's been notified. I talked to him earlier, probably 2 or 3 days ago, excuse me, and I thought he was going to be here at the meeting to voice his opinion on the issue, but he's not here tonight. But he will be afforded the opportunity to purchase half of it. If he declines, the applicant will buy all of it.
Okay, Mr. Davis, did you have anything further? We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Casbon and Willie.
Okay, all right. Please vote on the motion.
Carrie.
Motion approved. Tentative subdivision review, subdivision 12-04-001 Grand Oaks, Phase 2, Ward 1, District 1. Developer, owner, Trinity Developers, engineering, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Parish Council District, Representative Honorable Marty Dean. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property, like I say, 133 lots, typical A4 type subdivision, 90 by 120-foot size lots. The proposed development has jurisdictional wetlands. Therefore, the developer should be required to submit a copy of an approved Army Corps of Engineer permit to the Department of Engineering prior to receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process. Staff recommends approval subject to complying with that comment, and engineering has some comments.
The traffic study that was originally submitted will be accepted since the applicant is not adding to the number of lots. The main access points for the subdivisions are not being modified. The following comments need to be addressed at preliminary submittal. The radii of the intersections within the subdivision should be a minimum of 25 feet. A DOTD driveway permit will be required. Access easements must be provided to access the retention ponds. A note must be put on the plat requiring the finished floor elevation to be at least 1 foot above the crown of the road. Off-site drainage entering the subdivision may necessitate drainage and easements along the perimeter of part of the subdivision. A copy of the LDEQ notice of intent for general stormwater permit will be required for the subdivision file.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. Members of the commission, Paul Marone on behalf of Trinity Developers. This project actually received tentative and preliminary several years ago. In fact, I think it may have been back in '06. And in fact, 2 phases are already constructed out there. We had a problem with wetlands on the site in these future phases. As a result of those wetlands being present, we had to modify the plan in an attempt to avoid the wetlands. In modifying the plan, it necessitated us coming back to you for tentative, and that's why we're here today. Other than the modification to move the lots out of the wetlands, by and large, everything else is exactly the same as it was at tentative and preliminary on the prior approvals. So With regards to the engineering comments, we will certainly have those addressed at preliminary, which we intend to pursue immediately after this meeting. We'll have that on the plat, and if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them, but otherwise, this is something that you've seen before, and other than getting out of the wetlands, everything remains the same.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Matthews?
Paul, I, quite frankly, was looking at my map, and I didn't catch what you all were saying, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
The comments from the Department of Engineering, have those all been addressed?
These comments will be addressed at preliminary. They're not really relevant to being required at tentative. It's things we want to see when preliminary comes up. We just want to get our word in now.
You all are aware, because a couple of these, it looks like you're going to have to worry about the radius on some of these streets and stuff. That's fairly significant.
Yes, I had not seen these yet. I presume that Mr. McHugh's office has. If they haven't, they will see them now. And we will have these addressed by the time we come back to you at preliminary.
And it looks like there's an access problem for the retention ponds, and all those things are really pretty significant. And again, I know this is for preliminary, but you all need to be aware of them and get on it.
We will. And I would just say that of the items on there, including the access to the retention ponds, I think that we can accomplish all those. We just need to demonstrate that to you and to the staff, and we'll do that at preliminary.
When was the traffic study done? Has it been redone, or is it first time, or what?
It would have been done at our original tentative, which I believe, Mr. Matthews, was in about '06. It was not redone because we did not add any lots, nor did we change the access points to the roadways. So as a result, everything that was changed was on the interior, and the traffic study was not required to be updated or modified in any way.
Okay. Can I get a copy of that traffic study?
Yeah, I'll ask Rebecca to get you a copy.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Ms. Casabon?
I'll make a motion to approve the tentative.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor of the motion, please vote.
Carries.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is SD 12-04-002, North Park Phase 4, Ward 3, District 5. Developer owner, Mikado LLC and Ruttigore LLC, engineer is Scalfano Engineering. Parish Council District is Honorable Marty Gould. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed development has jurisdictional wetlands, therefore the developer should be required to submit a copy of the approved Army Corps of Engineers permit to the Department of Engineering prior to receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process. Comment 2, the developer is in violation of the maximum block length of 1,500 feet pursuant to section 40-033.0 of subdivision regulatory ordinance 499. This violation is from the intersection of Village Lane West and Sullivan Lane northward to the intersection of said lane to Three Rivers Road. Therefore, a waiver of this regulation must be approved by the Planning Commission to grant tentative approval. Comment 3, West Village Lane terminates without physically connecting to Village Lane. Dead-end streets are prohibited by code. Therefore, the developer must provide either a 60-foot radius cul-de-sac at the south terminus of the proposed Village Lane West, or provide a 60-by-60 turnaround if future development is contemplated. This shall be subject to a guarantee from the developer in written form that he will dedicate or provide the land necessary to construct a cul-de-sac at the end of said street to parish standards in the event that the development is not continued within 2 years after receiving preliminary subdivision approval. Furthermore, the developer must provide a performance obligation in the amount of $15,000 for a period of 2 years to be provided in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision approval process in order to cover the construction costs associated with the cul-de-sac in the event that the developer does not fulfill his obligations. Comment 4, since this development is a commercial and a development land clearing permit is required to be applied for and obtained through the Department of Planning prior to the developer receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process. Comment 5, if the commission decides to grant a tentative subdivision request approval, a waiver of the regulation is required for staff comment number 2 pursuant to section 40-100, waiver of regulations, which in turn requires a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership of the commission, which is 8 members, in order to grant said approval. With that comments, engineering has some comments.
The traffic impact analysis shows a need for the exit on Three Rivers Road from this development to be 2 lanes, 1 left turn lane, 1 right turn lane. The exit onto US 190 shall be right in, right out only. In addition, a right turn lane is needed on US 190 to turn into the development to be constructed at proper specifications. A left turn lane is also needed on Three Rivers Road at the entrance. The cost of these turn lanes, including any right-of-way costs, is solely the responsibility of the developer. This development is also required to apply for a DOTD driveway permit. Any other requirements that are put in place by DOTD shall also be the sole responsibility of the developer. The following comments need to be addressed at preliminary submittal. A significant amount of off-site drainage passes through this property, which will need to be accounted for. The tentative plan does not show parcels reserved for retention. As stated in note on bottom right, sheet S1. The parcel between Village Lane East and North Park Nissan isn't labeled. Show how Village Lane West ties into the existing Village Lane right-of-way. The typical roadway section should show stormwater subsurface drainage. The downstream tailwater condition south of this site may limit discharge rate of stormwater. The hydrologic study should consider the fact that much of the site is wetlands when the pre-development runoff coefficient is determined. A copy of the LDQ Notice of Intent for General Stormwater Permit will be required for the subdivision file. Remove Parish from restrictive covenant number 8 since this is a private subdivision.
Go ahead, Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm here in Covington, and I represent the owner and developer of North Park Phase 4, which is Mikado LLC and Rutagore LLC. As you can see from the vicinity map on your plat in the upper left corner, hopefully all of you are familiar with the existing North Park Phases 1 through 3, which is on the west side of US Highway 190 north of I-12. We are excited to bring to you this evening the first step in connection with the development of Phase 4, which, as you can see, will not only provide what we think will be a valuable business and commercial park for the parish, but also provide some valuable and needed infrastructure, namely roadway, that will facilitate access not only for the development, but also eventually to North Lake Christian School, and also provide an alternate access from 190 to Three Rivers Road. For those of you that are familiar with that region, you may know now that Three Rivers Road is, for the most part, destined to be a one-way in, one-way out facility. And this obviously will provide an additional connection once this project will actually be developed in 2 phases, essentially a southerly half or 2/3 and a northerly portion. But when completed, there will be a connection to Three Rivers Road. If I could, I'd like to make some specific comments with regard to the staff comments that were read to you this evening. We do not have a problem with any of the comments or requirements that are suggested. I would like to address the request for waiver as it relates to the block length of 1,500 feet. And if you take a look at the plat, I would suggest to you that when you see this matter at preliminary, I do not think that we will be in violation of the 1,500 foot requirement at that time. If you'll first look at the roundabout, an interesting design feature that is included in this project, not shown on your plat, but on the south side of that roundabout, you will see parcel C1. Do you see that on the southern boundary of the property? Go all the way to the south. There will be a connecting road or spoke that comes off of that roundabout that will run due south and connect into Village Lane. In addition to that, if you'll look to the left or west and look at Village Lane West, which is the subject of one of the other comments that you heard this evening, that likewise will provide a connection to Village Lane. So my point is that we will have two connectors, if you will, that will connect Greengate Drive to the other phases of North Park, and will, of course, break, if you will, what is now on paper to be a long single block. I think also some discussion with regard to the connection of Greengate to Three Rivers Road. It is our belief that there will be some possibility of alignment of, at that point, it's actually Sullivan Lane that connects to Three Rivers Road. There will be a possibility of connection with some of the existing streets to the north, and I believe it's Echo Street, that actually runs due north and runs into the back of the River Highlands subdivision, which connects to Dog Pound Road at a traffic light. So in some respects, this could be the beginning of a process that will eventually create something that would be, I guess you might say, a parallel to the Falconer Drive concept that we have on the east side of US Highway 190. I'm not suggesting that it will be of the same width or dimension, but I am suggesting that the construction of this phase and the development of this road to Three Rivers Road will provide alignment, and there's existing right-of-way and road north of Three Rivers that goes into the rear of River Highlands subdivision. We have met with the administration and discussed this possibility with them, because again, we believe that this is something that will certainly be of benefit to the entire community, not only as it relates to convenience and ease of travel, but also for safety considerations, to provide, again, if you will, a double route on the west side of 190. So we would ask you to take that into consideration when voting on the waiver this evening, particularly since there are only 8 honorable commissioners in attendance this evening, and we would respectfully request the vote of all 8 of you in order to get that waiver. We appreciate staff's comments as it relates to preliminary subdivision matters, and as Mr. Marone said in the prior case, it is always helpful to the developer and his engineer to get some feedback from your staff as to things that they are looking for at the time of preliminary. All of those matters are duly noted and will be addressed in detail, hopefully in full compliance with your regulation when we come back to you for the preliminary submission. We understand the traffic comment and the consequences of our development as it relates to improvements that are needed on the developer's nickel, and we are prepared to make those improvements at the appropriate time, both at the Three Rivers Road intersection and also at US Highway 190. Those are all of the comments I have. If any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to address those. Otherwise, we would appreciate your consideration of approval for tentative subdivision for North Park Phase 4.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Mr. Willie?
Jeff, yes, I'm looking at, I see a parcel B, not a part, in the southern part of that property.
Yes,
That's not part of the North Lake Christian School, is it?
it is not.
Okay, I was wondering about the dissection of their property by.
No,
coming-
their property is to the west of Village Lane West,
Okay,
and is actually shown a little further there. You'll see where the zoning is ED1 for North Lake
okay.
Christian.
And also, all those little stubs of streets, I see A Street, B Street, C, and D. What's to become of them? They just little short stubs on the bottom.
Yeah, those are all paper streets, none of which are constructed. Those are all part of the car dealership, right?
They part of the car dealership?
Part of the car
Okay,
dealership, they've
just-
already been revoked. I
Okay.
should mention,
I see
though,
them still on the
that
maps.
there is one sector that you might remember, some of you, because it's been done within the last 2 months. I think it's your February meeting. I did not handle it, but you have revoked a section of 19th, is it 19th Street? Between D and E. And that matter is now going through the process in terms of being appraised, and ultimately will be, there will be an ordinance adopted by the council, hopefully.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Matthews?
Jeff, you had indicated that there's going to be another road off of the roundabout. And did you indicate that there would be a change to the comment of number 2 that would eliminate the problem of the 1,500-foot maximum length?
Well, I guess really right. I guess my point is this, that it probably does not affect the 1,500-foot segment, because I believe, David, you just telling me that's the segment that goes to the north. But what I did want you to know is that that street is going to be broken with 2 intersections, with 2 streets that go to the south that connect to Village Lane.
But the Sullivan that's the problem. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Connection from that intersection of Sullivan all the way through.
Right, okay. And that's what you need the waiver for.
That is correct.
I would move to approve with the waiver of the 1,500-foot length, maximum length on Sullivan Street. I would indicate, I was looking at the engineering notes. Some of these are fairly significant that you all going to need to address at preliminary.
Yes, sir.
But with that, I would move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews, a second by Ms. Casabon. Mr. Davis?
It happens.
I have a question.
Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis?
Jeff,
Yes, sir.
I do have a little concern about some of these things.
Okay.
I think your green space here is a waste of time, realistically, with this large piece of property, this 3 acres that you have here. I'm concerned about all the wetlands. You have almost 50% of the property in wetlands, and you have to receive wetlands jurisdiction. You're going to try to get all that approved?
No, sir. Some of it will be avoided.
It will be avoided?
Some of it will be avoided.
Okay,
yes.
I'm a
I don't
little
know that it's quite 50%. I think we're probably
It's
more.
about 40-something%
Yeah,
according to the.
but we understand that the wetlands and its intrusion is a critical element with regard to this project, and that's something we realize we have to address aggressively and either decide
Yes.
whether we're going to be able to permit it, or if not, work around it and show you some preservation areas.
Yeah, because
So-
as is drawn, 11 out of the 14 lots do have wetlands considered on it. Another part about the road itself, I mean, I do like your idea about having it from the little circle driveway down to Village Lane, so I'm assuming that's going to be Village Lane East, maybe, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yes, sir.
And that takes care of that, and that takes care of it all the way up to Village Lane West, and of course, everybody's talking about the long distance all the way up to Three Rivers Road, but even considering the wetlands again, you have over 1,500 feet of road length on the wetlands, according to my measurements. Where the wetlands actually extends over the road itself that you're talking about, that's the normal maximum road length that we normally allow anyway, without another intersecting road. So I'm a little concerned about that, is all I'm saying is. So
Sure.
I'm hoping that if this passes and you come back at preliminary, that you'll have something changed. That's just my comments.
I appreciate your comments. We'll take those into consideration when putting together our plan for preliminary.
Okay.
Any other comments from any of the commissioners? We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
There's one day.
There's one nay. Okay, we have a 7-1 vote here.
That's you intentionally voted no, Mr. David? Okay.
Okay. So the motion failed with the waiver.
On the waiver.
Make a new motion then.
Mr. Matthews?
Move to approve without the waiver.
Okay, we have a motion to approve without the waiver. Do we have a second? We have no second, so motion.
No second?
Okay, Mr. Willie. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. It's second. Okay, please vote on the motion.
Eight.
Yeah. Mine will go in the prevailing side.
Okay.
So we have 7.
So motion carries without the waiver.
Thank you for your time.
All right, next item is preliminary subdivision review, SD 06-08-027, P2 and 3, Rayford Oaks, phases 2 and 3, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, Rayford Oaks LLC, engineer Rensselaer, engineering and consulting, Parish Council District, Honorable Marty Dean. Staff?
The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office and inspections made of the site. It is recommended that preliminary submittal be approved. Funded maintenance obligation in the amount of $10,000 is required in accordance with subdivision 499. Section 40-6108, funded letters of credit for existing parish roads to ensure the repair of any damage to parish roads resulting from construction activities connected with this subdivision. Mandatory developmental fees will be required at final submittal in accordance with ordinance 499 since no public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005.
Okay, who's here from the Rayford Oaks?
Jeremy Paguada with Rensselaer Engineering, representing Rayford Oaks LLC.
Okay,
I'm here to answer any kind of questions that you may have.
okay. Commission have any questions? Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, I have one question. If I can get all this together. There's green space between lot 101 and 100. And there's green space between lot 85 and 84. Those are fairly small pieces of green space. If there would be a way to combine those two by shifting lots around to put those two pieces of green space together, you'd have 150 by 125, a section of green space you could actually use for something.
Correct.
And that looks like something that I would really like to see. I like green spaces to be more than just a small plot of land that there's a single tree on.
Correct. We agree with that. We actually had attempted this in another part of the subdivision. I believe in the, I guess it's maybe lot 80, in the 80s. We were actually shifting a space that was kind of in a right-of-way that we were using as a connection into another subdivision, but we realigned the lots to allow for the green space to move, and it would be a larger green space, also larger lots at that time. However, that would be a major change in the PUD, and it would require us to go, at the time, it would require us to be back here, and it was more or less reconsidered. We ended up here anyways, so it's something that, they would probably be in favor with as long as it would be approved.
With 150 feet by 125 feet, I mean, you can put a play area on there, you can,
Correct.
actually have
Right.
some real use out of it.
Yeah, as long as it wasn't infringing on being a major amendment to the PUD, we would definitely change it.
I'm not an engineer, not an architect, but you could just shift everything to the right or something like
Right.
that to do it.
Right.
And I don't know.
We were instructed that any type of realignment or rearrange of the green space or allocated areas in certain sections, that would be a major amendment, so.
Well, if it can be done, I'd
Absolutely.
vote for it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mackey?
On the outflow from the detention pond, where's it going to?
There's a natural drainage basin going through, that goes through the middle of the property, that where the actual pond is, the retention pond is currently, it actually flows through that, and it's being reallocated into a detention. And at the southern portion of it, there is a 21-foot weir that's being used to control the outflow, and then it actually just continues to follow through with the natural drainage of the area.
Okay, yeah, I see a 10-foot new weir on it. There's going to be another, you're going to replace that? Or?
Yes. Yeah, at the end of the phase 3, they would, as it was approved in the first hydro that was made, as it was approved initially through preliminary, that it would be constructed to the full size. And if it was needed to verify that would actually work with the actual drainage going through there, that we would provide a hydro study to, I guess, more or less confirm it.
Okay, I have a question for Paul right now. In reviewing their study on this, did you feel it was okay with the outfall ditch?
Yes.
It looked like it could handle all that water from the detention pond spread out, I guess.
As well as it does now.
Not better, just as well as it does now. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Matthews?
One more quick question, and I don't know whether it's Paul or who, but the rearranging the lots to include a larger green space, is that something that can be done at this point in time?
To make a larger green space?
No, to make a more usable green space, the two
Well, yeah, I
parcels
mean,
combined into one.
this is preliminary, and you can make adjustments to it if the developer can comply with, your request.
Okay, and so,
But
as part of a motion to approve, we would make it subject to combining the two
Well, I mean,
green
do
spaces.
at tentative, they've got approval for the green space as laid out. So if you
Right.
want to make some changes to it, you can make that request, but I don't think you can make, I don't think you can make it a part of the motion that they have to do it, as long as they comply with the green space requirements. I mean, a matter of whether it's usable or not is subjective. I mean, if they can use it, then they should be able to use it, but certainly they can entertain your suggestion.
Okay, that's what I needed to know, whether we can make it mandatory, but at this point, it has to be a suggestion. Okay.
And would he have to do a major amendment to the PUD in order to do that, or no?
Well, if he ends up having to manipulate green space around in buildings and sites and things of that nature, then yeah, it could be very well considered a major change to the PUD, and he'd have to come back through the process. This is a PUD.
Correct.
Yeah, so you would have to do
So
that.
he had to work with you on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I move to approve with the suggestion, if there's any possible way without being, causing a great deal of confusion and effort and money.
Right. Well, it
try to
shouldn't-
combine those two.
Right, we'll work with them to see if that's possible to go ahead and if it's.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Move to approve.
I'll go ahead and
Motion by
second.
Mr. Matthews, seconded by Mr. Davis. Or Mr. Knight, okay. Please vote on the motion. Gordon? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Correct, okay. All right, next item on the agenda is proposed amendments to ordinance 499. Staff?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this is a simple amendment change to the ordinance. It's just to clarify that part of the tentative subdivision process, the developer's required to submit a notarized letter to us indicating that they contacted all the essential utility companies, advising them of the new subdivision development so they can decide whether they want to provide utilities in that said subdivision. This ordinance just makes an amendment to add the cable TV services to the essential utilities list.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Willie?
Ron, I got a question. Should, I know you notice all the utilities that being notified. How about the drainage districts? 'Cause a lot of times they need servitudes and things, you know, along boundaries and things like that.
That's dealt with at preliminary level, where it's determined at that time what's needed, and they can be contacted.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Casabon, seconded by Willie Matthews. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, I believe, Mr. Shane would like to speak with the commission. Mr. Shane?
Yes, sir, I appreciate being recognized. Jeff Shane of Jones Fussell, and I would like to speak with you for a minute about the tentative case that you granted but denied the waiver on, if I could, for just a minute. It's in particular, of course, SD 1204002. It occurs to me that I'm not sure that the approval you granted is clear, in that if the waiver was denied, then the plan that I presented to you does not meet the requirements of your law. And I think you approved my plan, which I appreciate. It's not often you'll hear me coming back to the podium to talk to you about something you've approved. But in the long run, it seems to me better to come to you now and express to you some concerns I have about what you did procedurally. I would like to suggest the following. I certainly respect Mr. Davis and his opinion, so and it may be that he is unwilling to change that opinion, but I believe that he is the only party that could possibly bring a motion for reconsideration on the floor for this matter to be reconsidered. And I would like to at least suggest the following for your consideration. It would seem to me that because this is only tentative and it's not a work order situation where the subdivision has been approved and someone's going to go out and construct it, that if you would consider granting tentative subdivision approval and granting the waiver, we would commit that when we come back to you for preliminary, it will not include that 1,500-plus foot length of Sullivan Lane. In other words, we're going to, as I said earlier, we're going to divide the preliminary into two phases, what I'm going to call the southerly portion and the northerly portion. I recognize that at least Mr. Davis, and probably all of you to some extent, want us to address this 1,500-foot issue, which I think I made clear to Mr. Davis that we took that to heart and that we would address that. I can't tell you tonight how I'll solve it. I mean, one of the possibilities is I've got to figure out a way either to do some type of cross-street or connection. That certainly would be a way to do it. Or there may be some other way to handle it with road configuration. If not, I may be coming back asking for the same waiver in the future. But it seems to me, rather than having to take an appeal and go to the council with this, if you didn't see anything, you apparently were comfortable with the plan, you approved it, I would just ask if Mr. Davis might be willing to make a motion for reconsideration so that you could grant the waiver, but again, with the understanding that we will come back to you for preliminary only on the southerly half.
Yeah, can I respond? Jeff, my biggest problem I'm having with this is up to the point where the road enters from Highway 190 up to Village Lane West. And obviously, we know that's the problem from there on Sullivan all the way up to Three Rivers Road, and that's the length in question that we're having concerns with, right? I'm also having problems of the wetlands that intersect Sullivan Lane at several points up to Three Rivers Road. I'm just thinking about if you did have some sort of other alternate means of getting out of this area, in case there was any serious flooding, just in case, it would take care of two things at once. It'd take care of maybe an alternate route in which people could exit, and it'd also take care of not even having a waiver for you. That was one of my points about that. I do have questions about having all this wetlands, where in the previous two tentative subdivision plats, as you saw, how they were actually changed to move the property around the wetlands. In this thing, it looks like nothing's been done at all with that. And I know it's just tentative, and I know you still have to get jurisdiction properties on that. So that's where I'm having a problem with. Can
Well-
you actually approve a tentative without the waiver?
I think that's gonna be, that's a problem too.
That's, no,
So-
I don't think we can. I have a question, Jimmy,
Well-
about the wetlands and stuff. I was under that they have to mitigate, which means that the wetlands tells them, or the Corps tells them, they just don't let them go in. In other words, how to make sure that the drainage is correct and that, what the Corps, to me, if I'm wrong, kind of tells them how, or you tell them how, but also the way the drainage and stuff, because we can't impede. It has to be 25% less reduction on any, project that we do.
But
That,
that's
I know
us,
we're
not the
seeing a
Corps.
lot of wetlands, but I was just thinking that I thought once they go through the mitigation and stuff, that the Corps actually has the say-so in how, or, how it would fit into this development and stuff. Is that true?
I agree.
I was,
Mr. Doherty, I think I could help the discussion. With all due respect, I think there's some confusion on some of your part with regard to wetlands and flood zone and flooding issues. First of all, if you look at the plat, you'll see that the entire development is located in flood zone C.
Yeah.
It's all non-flood zone. So the suggestion that wherever this road is going to create some peril to property or person as it relates to flooding is simply not the facts.
I understand
The-
that too, but
the-
you can
the-
have flooding in flood zone C.
No, sir, I didn't say that you couldn't. I'm only suggesting, though, that it sounded to me as if some believe that because depicting wetlands, it was suggestive of potential flooding conditions. I just don't think that's the case. And as far as the 1,500-foot issue, having appeared before this commission many times, I cannot remember how many times I've seen you waive that requirement, in many cases where you've even had a cul-de-sac at the end. My suggestion here is that this is not a waiver that ends in a cul-de-sac. Think about the opportunity to have a road that is going to connect to Three Rivers Road and also connect to North Lake Christian School. I apparently didn't do a good job in suggesting what I thought were the compelling reasons to waive the block length. But let me end the discussion by saying this. I felt it was worth the time to make one more plea to see if there might be a reconsideration. If there is, we would appreciate it. If there's not, we respect that, and we'll appeal it to the council.
I have a question for engineering. The distance from Sullivan Lane at Village Lane West to Three Rivers Road, what is the actual distance there? If it's greater than
We
8.
calculated it's probably about 1,700 to 1,800 feet in that range. It's a few hundred feet short of the 1,500
Oh,
foot.
okay, so,
It's 11, this is
oh, see,
11,
I was assuming
21.
it was gonna be.
It's about 200 to 300 feet
Okay,
past the
so
requirement.
it's not the original 5,000 something.
Oh, no.
100 feet, because it looks like it's much longer than that,
No.
just by scale.
No.
Just by scale, by doing the scale, 1 inch.
It's not 5,000. That's a mile, almost a mile.
Well, no, what I'm just saying is, I mean, if you look at the total road length that you have.
No,
listed on
we
your
did our
plat,
calculations, and it's right around maybe 17 to 18, possibly 1850, but not anymore,
okay,
not
so
more than
It's only
2,000.
300 feet.
Right, correct. The staff doesn't have any major issues
Okay,
with this
all
proposal.
right. Well, I'm sorry, then maybe I calculated this wrong when I made my measurements on that. I'll make a motion to reconsider.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Davis to reconsider,
Please vote.
120402, motion to approve
Okay, we need to,
without the waiver.
well, we need to vote on
No,
to
we need
reconsider
to, motion to
first.
reconsider first.
First, let's
Motion.
vote on that.
Then we have a motion.
Okay, motion to reconsider. And let's see, Mr. Davis made the motion, seconded by Mr. Matthews. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. We have 8 yeas.
Now, I'll remake my motion to grant it with the waiver.
Motion to grant with the waiver. Do we have a second? Ms. Casabon? Rick?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Please vote. Motion carries with the waiver. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Okay, next item is any old business to come before the commission? Any new business? Motion to adjourn? Thank you.